Welcome to School Life Unpacked, the podcast for anyone navigating the complexities of their child's education. Join me, Natasha Curtis-Ego, and a lineup of insightful guests as we explore the challenges, joys, and surprises of school life, offering support and tips to help us feel more confident and connected.
Today, I have a very special guest, and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself and tell us a bit about herself.
Hello, I'm Tia, but children know me as Mrs. Mayson. I am a Nursery Lead at Barons Court Primary School and Nursery in Southend. I have been at Barons Court for, this is my 4th year now, my 5th year.
With the idea of School Life Unpacked, we're talking about preparing our children for this journey of school and how exciting it can be, but it can also be a bit nerve-wracking in some ways. So we're looking at nurseries and what they do and how they encourage young people on this little journey. Yeah. Could you explain a little bit about what a nursery is and what makes your nursery type it is?
Yeah, so I think a nursery is a really good opportunity for both parents and children to get a bit of independence, because I know a lot of parents like to keep their child at home, and obviously it's your most precious thing, but I think it really helps them have a little bit of time away and hopefully know they're in safe hands, as well as the child. I think there's a lot of benefits to going to a nursery, even so children who suffer with separation anxiety, children who just don't have a lot of brothers or sisters or cousins or family. Some children move from other countries here and they don't have anyone, so they're having all those opportunities with other children. It's also really nice for the parents. I find at Barons that we have a really good community, and there's a lot of opportunities for parents to be with other parents. We do like workshops. There's like a pottery workshop that parents, and they're all free. Sometimes if they're from Southend College, they might be paid, but it goes straight to the college. It doesn't, it's just we're just a space provided for them to do it at. So I think it's good for the children and the parents to have that independence. And obviously children learn a lot when they're there.
Because when I was researching this, I noticed that there's several different types of nurseries. And I was like, I thought a nursery, I thought they were all created equal.
Yeah.
But I'm noticing fast that they're not, and they provide different sort of benefits to how they're structured. So how would you describe your nursery?
Our whole school ethos, and especially the nursery, is called something called Montessori, which is very child-led. So the real kind of Swedish kind of approach is that it's completely child-led and the children lead everything. But that makes it very difficult to kind of cover things. So we follow something called the Hygge approach, which is quite unique. I think there's only ever one other school that does it that we know of, called it's in Hartwood, and me and Mrs. Jones, my head teacher, went to go visit it to get some inspiration. And Hygge basically is the principle of a home away from home. So that's the kind of thing that we want I want my nursery to be. So it's very rustic colours. It's very understimulating. There isn't displays. The only displays we have are kind of displays that can be up all year round of like loose parts or the children engaging in things or things from our topic. We don't have wild displays because that can be overstimulated for children. A lot of the toys, resources we put out are meant to be very natural. So like wood bark, loose part play. So Montessori is something that sets kind of us unique. And we also do a lot of outdoor learning and have a lot of opportunities outside of the classroom. And we do have an award for that. So one of my LSAs at the moment has just done a forest school course. So he'll be taking the children out to do fires, and I've done fires as well, although I'm not forest school trained. I am fire trained. So they do fires, they'll whittle. Obviously, the higher up the school you get, the more there is, but in nursery so I think those kind of unique parts, and as well being attached to a school, our nursery is more formal, but it depends on the person who's running it. The way I run it is fairly formal, I think, because most of my background is in reception and year one, that I am a bit more formal. I do have kind of expectations of sitting, but not for long periods of time. But as kind of soon as they're ready, we do start to practice that long periods of, not too long, of sitting and listening.
Do you find that nursery is really important to set your child up for going to reception? Or do you find that if you go into any other early learning settings, as long as you have that sort of understanding as a child, you'll be fine?
I think it's a huge part of the parent and the educational setting working together. I believe that parents who value their children's education is just as impactful as going to a nursery offers more opportunities in terms of we have funding, so we can offer a lot more toys that parents aren't paying out for themselves if they have them at home. But I think the parents who follow up, so we have something called PACT, which is our kind of light homework, which is parent and child together, and we send like a book home with a little activity for them to do. And even though it's one tiny thing, the parents engage in anything that and going above and beyond reading with their child every night. I think that has the greatest impact as well alongside nursery.
You said you've been at your school for 5 or 6 years so far?
Yeah, I think this is my 5th year.
Okay, so you must really enjoy the early foundation years because you've stuck with it. So what would you say is the most inspiring part about being with children at that age?
I always thought reception, so I've got a PGCE, but I specialised in early years when I was at university. And I was always like, I'm definitely only going to do reception. And then the vacancy at Barron's came up for a nursery. And I was like, I'd love to go. But when I got there, she was like, actually, I think it'd be better for you to go into reception and then go into nursery later on, which is what happened. I think it's the awe and wonder. I think it's when you show them something for the first time, or you tell them something like, I leave glitter on the table and I'm like, oh, a fairy's bit, and they're like, wow, where has she gone? Or I'll hide a bear in the woods and we're going on a bear hunt, and they're like, oh, how did that get there? Whereas as they go up, they're like, oh, you put that there earlier. So I think that's the nice. And I think I did a lesson the other day, and I do this lesson every year, but every year I'm still surprised at how much they believe it. So you put flat 2D shapes in a bag and you blow up a balloon and you say, oh, look what happens to the balloon when you blow it. It becomes 3D. So you blow into the bag, and then as you pull the triangle out, it turns into a pyramid, turns into a sphere. And they're like, oh, how did you do that? And I think it's those moments, those memorable moments, I think are the most special, and the ones you're like, oh, or if a parent's like, oh, they finally said this word in English or something, I think they're the like wow moments. Or a child who's non-verbal and uses Makaton, which is like sign language, which we use a lot in nursery as well. They're the special kind of one-off moments that you don't always get while at the early years, I think.
You said you use Makaton. So you at your nursery, is this something that you're really pushing as to encourage sort of communication, right?
Yeah, so a previous LSA of mine had mouth cancer, and I've always been passionate about Makaton, but I think she was passionate for personal reasons, and we kind of worked together. We do Makaton all the time in nursery. All of our songs are Makaton. We do a sign of the week. We do all the time, and I think it's had huge benefits, and it is quite funny. So if you teach the children the emotion sad, if you put another child on timeout, they'll come up to you and put their hand and go, they've made me very sad that they've ended up on there. You can tell they're listening to it sometimes, or the parents will go, they've started doing all these weird hand motions at home. Oh, that's the Makaton.
So could you explain what Makaton is for the listeners, because they may not know what it is?
So it's similar to British Sign Language, but it's like an abbreviated version for children, and it's it shouldn't replace language, it should go alongside language. So if you're using it, you should speak the word as well as act it out, because it's meant to encourage the child to use the sign, then to use the word, like as a step in, not to use it instead, whereas British Sign Language is instead of. And it just means it's kind of like a universal fun language for all children. So if they've got EAL, which is English as additional language, or special educational needs, like when I do this, all the children know how to what language.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
You won't. For the listeners back out there, Mrs. Mayson, sorry, just did the sign for sad.
Which is a hand down your head, like across your nose, going downwards. All the children know that means I'm sad. Or if we're doing happy, and then a lot of them cross-link, so happy birthday, we use the happy, so it's quite nice. And they get excited when they can remember them as well.
Yeah, it is. My son learned it because he went to your nursery as well, and he loved it. And he would come home and we'd learn the alphabet, and we'd do signs for animals and things.
He was amazing.
It was quite fun to do together because it was something that I hadn't learned. I mean, I've seen it a little bit. I guess Mr. Tumble does something similar.
He does them, Mr. Tumble. There's some amazing. So there's Mr. Tumble, there's Singing Hands, which do the songs, and there's another kind of YouTube account called Signing with Lucia, a little girl with Down syndrome who does. Yeah, she's really good as well.
So it was quite fun to have to look them up and find them as our homework. And it was, it was really fun for him because he got into it, and it's very practical. So he loved that, I must admit. So when you moved from nursery to primary school.
Yeah.
I would say it seems to me watching, it's a
Yeah.
big jump.
Yeah.
Because it's suddenly slightly more formal,
Yeah.
even though it's still learning through play, but it's, very
Yeah.
structured in that way. What would be your tips and advice to parents to help with that transition?
So one thing which is hard for me to say and quite hard to hear, I do think if your child is planning to go to the school, if you kind of know where you want your child to go to school and there's a nursery attached, it might be better to go for them, just because if I think of my school, I know the things that I've had experience in other years. So I know the things that are going to come in my school. And I know the way, the ethos and the way we do things will follow them up through the school. So if you go to a nursery that's attached to the school you want to go to, it's benefits. But obviously, we have children come to our nursery that go to all different schools. It doesn't really matter. I think it helps the settling process for you, because for a parent, they know the school, they know the teachers, they have kind of a relationship with it already, because it can seem like your child gets plucked from nursery, and even the admission process is nothing to do with the school. It's all done online. So you feel like, I don't even know where I've got this place at. So that is something that can help. I also think just preparing your child and yourself that there is going to be change, but not too early. Because I think some parents want to tell them as soon as they've got the place, but actually then that's a lot of time for them to think about it and worry about it. But I think it's the way it's proposed as well. Like, it's an exciting new adventure. A Better Start Southend did have a fantastic programme. Can't remember the name of it, but they used to have preparation for the children, like a monthly calendar and something to prepare the child over the summer holidays, a little chatter challenge that they'd have to do in September. And they'd have a little book or a little toy that goes with them that was given from their new teacher. Schools also have settling sessions, so I'd recommend parents go to those. And the things you don't see that happen behind the scenes is your nursery does come and visit our school, or we go and visit them, and we do have transition with the nursery. We pass over the paperwork. If they've got tapestry accounts, they normally get, which is like an online learning journey, they normally get moved over as well. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with us, just with a nursery like myself talking to the new school, or vice versa, a nursery coming to our school, that you don't know about. That happens.
Which is kind of reassuring as parents, isn't it? To know that my nursery and my school are going to communicate, even if it's not within the same school. I think you kind of feel like when you're going to a completely new school, they know nothing about your child, and this is they have to learn sort of as they go. But it's really lovely to hear that they know a little bit about your child before they arrive.
Definitely.
And what would you say your most exciting experience has been in the time that you've been teaching?
The most exciting and the most stressful is going on a trip. Because trips are lovely and they're amazing experiences for the children, especially some children are taken to the beach and they've never been to the beach before. And they're like, wow, they just like want to go straight into the water. They're amazing. Even with trips, this is another thing to make you feel a bit more safe. Because when I was younger, my mum refused to let me go on any school trips. But now the other side, I'm like, no, there's a lot of planning. So there'll be at Barron's Court, you'll do your normal kind of risk assessment for the trip. Then it has to be uploaded to something in Southend called Evolve. So that's another risk assessment. If a child has additional need or behavioural needs, they'll get an individual plan for how we're going to deal if they run off or something. So if you're worried about your child maybe not being a great listener, we're prepared for that. We have all the allergies, if they've got EpiPens or Piriton, everything's prepared for before. So that bit's all stressful once you're there. This year we did a trip earlier than normal. I took them to Waitrose, which everyone was going, why Waitrose? I was like, because I'm thinking about the parking, because I've got to drive the minibus. It's not as busy as Sainsbury's. But actually, it was lovely when they went, and we did a fruit topic. So they were looking at all the fruit. They were looking at dragon fruit and pomegranate, and using their manners and speaking to the cashier and putting their things and waiting, which some parents might not want to take their children shopping, because you're not shopping for fun. You're shopping through your whole weekly shop that might take an hour. So it was nice for them to be able to enjoy it. And we looked at all the fun things like decorations and fruit and the plants. So
So school trips are definitely a fun thing.
That was exciting. Yeah,
that was exciting. Oh, thank you so much for your time and just having a chat really about nursery and its positive impact on children. So if we could end on maybe, I know I've asked tips before, but let's say 5 tips for surviving nursery leading to reception, what would they be?
So my first one is toilet training. If your child is toilet trained, it just makes everyone's life easier and cheaper because you're not paying for nappies. And obviously a couple of accidents is absolutely fine. But we mean coming without a nappy. It's just a confidence boost for them as well. So I'd say toilet training is number 1. I would say just ensuring your child is the best communicator they can be. Some children might need a little bit of help with certain sounds, and that I mean more as in if they need our help, they're able to convey that to us. They're able to tell you a little bit, just a good communicator so that we can sort out a problem if it occurs, or they can just tell us the lovely things or come home and tell you the lovely things and make you feel relief. Another top tip, which we got from COVID, was that if your child's at the nursery gate, the first few weeks are hellish for both of us. They do cry as they come in, and they don't cry the whole time, but if you're hiding behind the gate and they can see you, they will cry still. So we learnt in COVID that the best thing to do psychologically is they leave you at the gate. So we encourage parents, while they're still getting used to it, to stay at the gate and the child leave the parent and come in. So the parent isn't psychologically leaving them, they are leaving the parent and they're making that independent decision. And it's really hard, but if they are upset, kind of giving them a cuddle, and always saying goodbye, because some parents try not to say goodbye, but you must say goodbye so they know you're going. Giving them a cuddle and saying, I'll see you soon, and letting us walk them in is the best way to make everything go quicker. And it does always work. By Christmas now, we've got no children coming in crying. That was my 3rd tip. My 4th tip is there anything, Natasha, you think that would have anything that you think might help?
Well, I don't know. I found the saying bye was interesting because I always expected tears, but we had tears later on.
Yeah.
But with
That's a really
my
good point.
daughter, we used to watch a cartoon called Daniel's Tiger, and in it was a short little episode about grown-ups coming back. So I prepared her completely different. I would sing this song and she was fine. But with my son, I thought he would be fine, but he had tears like a few months in, and I never understood why he was suddenly upset to be going when he'd spent months.
And that's a really good point, because we've had a couple of parents come in lately and say, oh, they're so emotional, but we always find towards the end of a half term they're exhausted. Okay. So give them a bit of time. They're really, really tired. It's all real for them. They're like, oh, I'm here every day now. They're here every day till they're 16, 18. And they've sort of got used to that. But then, and as well, sometimes they might come home tired or go tired or upset, but actually in the session when they're seeing their friends and they're busy, they're okay. It's just that before bit, knowing they're going to leave you, or if their siblings ill and at home with you cuddling, that's different. I also thought of another tip while you're saying that. If your child is demonstrating a behaviour, make sure you have really strong consequences of how you do with that, in terms of not kind of strong consequences, the type I mean that you stick to it. So if you choose time out, if they bit someone, you will stick to that amount of time out and you stick to it. So at least when behaviours come up, you have something to go to, because I think some parents get very worried about how they should discipline their child. And obviously take it with a grain of salt, like not everything needs to have a consequence, but actually severe behaviours like biting do. But things like being a little bit cheeky maybe necessarily don't. So yeah, they're probably my 5 tips inspired by you.
So do you find that parents are open to communication with the nursery? When I say that, it's only because you mentioned biting, and I was thinking, oh, if my child was to bite, how would I respond to that? And how does the nursery deal with that? I know it's like sort of a tangent, but
no, that's fine. It's really good actually, because I think some parents find biting and it is a really serious incident, but actually the way it comes about is all miscommunication. So I find a lot of the biting that happens in my class, which doesn't thankfully happen too often, but we did have a biter, but it was because he had no language. So if he wanted something and someone was taking it from him, he couldn't say no. He didn't know how to say stop that. He didn't know how to come over to me and tell me he needed help. His first thing was to bite. And when we looked into a little bit more as well, it's about how it was dealt with at home. So I think it was like, actually, if you do this, this is the consequence. And I think working with it like that is really helpful. The way I would deal with it in nursery is if a child bit, we would tell both parents, the one who it happened to and the one who did it. Obviously not tell them who did it, but the children normally tell the parents and then say, this is how we dealt with it. This is what I want you to do at home. I'd normally give them some books or some social stories. A story that you put the child in, you create a story around the child. So, Natasha really wants Tia's toy, but Natasha can't speak to Tia. What can Natasha do? Natasha can go and tap an adult for help and you'd put the child in the story and give them other options of things to do, and you'd just repeat it. So I'd give them social stories or stories about teeth are for chewing or teeth are for eating food, that kind of thing. And then we did a lot of that, and now it's worked really well. We had like there's another card called a PEC card, which is point exchange card, which is what children with special educational needs normally use, because they might use it if they want an apple and they can't speak. They would give a picture of an apple card to an adult, and the adult would know they want the apple and they'd give them the apple. But I would use it with like a biting sign and a cross to say like, no, we don't do this. And then lots of positive reward when they are doing the right thing.
Oh, okay, that's really interesting to know, because again, I suppose children are learning. They're learning how to communicate. They're learning how to deal with social situations. They're not around so many children in one go. And the nice thing about nursery is it's short, but reception is long. And
it happens quickly. You have a week and then you're double the time you're in a nursery.
So you've got very tired children having to deal with each other. So it's nice to know that nurseries, schools have in place ways to deal with behavioral issues if they arise, and how to just kind of get children back to finding their emotions and learning how to.
And there's also something called restorative justice that we do, and that is, it works better with the older years, but it does work with the younger years. It's also about repairing that relationship. So that child who bit that other child, at the moment they're not ready to have that restorative justice in the same way as an older child, but it would be like, okay, tomorrow's a fresh slate, I normally call it, and you bring them back and you'd play nice games where they're acting nicely to each other, and the child who got bit knows that that child didn't bite them because they don't like them, they bit them because of the situation that arose from it. And that's something that nurseries and our school uses a lot. And we also use a school-wide mantra of, we put our hand out, and all of the children are really good at this, and this is why I said it helps if they go to a nursery that's attached to the school they go to, because we use stop it, I don't like it. And then the children all the way up the school know that, and so I normally say to children, try that once, if that doesn't work then you come to me. But that's something else we use.
Thank you so much for your time and chatting with us. Hopefully we'll have you again for some more questions and tips. It'll be great fun. But thank you so much, Tia.
No,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode, and we truly appreciate you listening. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, subscribe and follow to stay updated on future episodes. We look forward to seeing you next week.